So I didn't start gigging until I got out of college, and I got out of college, and I said, "Mom, I want to be a country singer." And her first thing was, "Can you sing?"
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, "Don't you have to be like impoverished to be a country singer? Like you grew up in the woodlands, you know? Are you gonna sing about how they ran out of towels at the country club?"
That's my favorite. I felt the same way. Whenever I would tell people, I was like, "Yeah, man, this might come off kind of weird."
I mean, there's something to be said about there's an authenticity if you grew up on a farm or rodeoing or whatever to sing about certain things. But I don't think you need anything to sing about your own heart or your own emotional experience as a human. But that was definitely starting off. It felt like I struggled a little bit with feeling like people's perception of me was based on the town I grew up in rather than my actual story or my work. And
I know I ran from that too for a long time. I'm from Houston, just north of Houston.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Jackin Around podcast is brought to you by Lone Star Dry Goods, a collection of handcrafted quality goods with a truly unique Americana vibe. Visit the world headquarters in the heart of downtown Abilene, Texas, and Willow Park, Texas, Fort Worth. Visit LoneStarDryGoods.com for more information. Roll. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Carll.
Well, hey.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
How you been?
I can't complain.
You can.
I could, but it won't do me any good. And I'm happy to be here, man. Things are going well. So I've been looking forward to this for a while.
So how many gigs have you been playing since COVID? Like when did you pick back up?
I did a few during the summer of 2020 when things calmed down for a minute, and then I did a few more this last summer. But I picked up in earnest around September, or I did a couple green halls in August, and then really started hitting the road in September. So
how was your footing? Like you got your sea legs back?
Yeah, I'm there now. It's a different deal. I did a live stream like a lot of folks. I did a weekly live stream. I think we did like 65 episodes or something. And that
really,
yeah, that was a lifeline for me in a lot of ways. Not just financially, but like, it was just me and my wife trapped in our house, and I started finding ways to. I thought every week, like, these people are going to disappear, like the bottom's going to fall out, and so. And I didn't have a backup plan for anything. And so I started trying, I would make postcards and send them out, and every week we'd do that. And I started taking requests, and I just tried to keep people engaged.
You sent them out snail mail?
What's that?
Or emails?
Snail mail.
No shit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great. How'd you have a long list of addresses?
Well, when they give you money on PayPal or Venmo, or on PayPal, their address automatically comes up.
Wow.
And so my wife started doing it, and then I thought that's a good idea. So I started doing it. And so I've got this collection of like 50 postcards.
That's great.
I had to come up with a new one every week. But anyway, I through that, I sort of had built this connection with my fans that I didn't really have before. Like I got to know them and they got to know me. They were in my house every week, and they met my dogs, and my son did magic, and Allison would come in and so that was a lifeline for me, just like emotionally and mentally, to know there were people out there at a time when the world was feeling strange, and I don't know, it just kept me afloat. So I got really used to doing that, and I really enjoyed sitting down. I'd be done with my show and eating dinner at my own table at 8:00. That's nice. Which is a very different thing.
How'd you approach the set list every week? Did you change it, or did you?
Yeah. So after the first couple of shows, I was like, I've got maybe 100 songs. There's only so many times people want to hear it. And so I started going back to my covers days, which, I started playing 4 hours a night in the bar doing covers.
Right.
But as you become a songwriter and start putting records out, I stopped doing that. I started thinking, well, they didn't come to hear me do covers. They came to hear these songs I wrote. And it would have been smart to recognize that you can do both. Like Todd does a really good job of that, and you do sometimes too. You work in covers the things that people know that you do well, and I just didn't for whatever reason.
I think like you and me, like most of the covers I do were on my first set list.
Yeah,
like it's all the old shit, just Jerry Jeff or
whatever. Yeah. I just kind of stopped doing it, and I lost touch. I lost connection with that music, which was a real downside to it. Was all this stuff I used to know by heart? I lost connection with, and so one of the upsides of this whole deal, these concerts at home, was I started digging up all these old covers. I found my set list from 1998, and all the list of handwritten covers that I knew, and I reconnected with that music. I reconnected with Christopherson and Prine and Billy Joe and Shaver and on and on and on, and all these people, Jimmy Buffett and the Dylan stuff, or just all these things that have been so formative to me. I got back into them, and that did me a lot of good as well. So, and then the last show of every month, I just let the fans pick it, but they had to tell a story, and so I would say, send in a request, but you have to tell me a story, like how you're doing during the pandemic, or what this song means to you, or whatever. And boy, that was, I had a 4-hour show one night, and I would play as many as I could, and the stories of these people would, I might just
that's
lost
killer, man. That is
whatever. And
that's a connection.
It really felt special in a way that I did not foresee, and that was really humbling to me. And now going back out again, I'm seeing these people, and it feels special. Like they're like, you kept us going during the pandemic, and every Tuesday at 6:30 we were there.
Wow.
And so it was a silver lining for me, for sure.
That's funny, man, because I shied away from doing all that online stuff during the pandemic, and I'm looking back and hearing you tell that story, it makes me go, really missed an opportunity to make a real solid connection.
Well, I like I said, I worried about how it was gonna end, and also, there's times where I definitely felt silly sitting there in my living room just playing songs, but there was something really special about it. I recognized that that's actually where I'm at my best.
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm not a front man. I'm realizing I that's my job in some ways when I have a band, but it's not my comfort spot. My comfort zone is sitting around talking, and there was nobody talking back. So I would just talk and riff and ramble. And once I got out of my own head and could relax about it, it became quite fun. And
that's fantastic, man.
Just was able to open up and not feel like I had to be cool. If something, when Prine died, I'd play a Prine song and cry and think nothing of it, or when I was down or up or whatever it was, or I felt like it was totally okay to just be myself. There was nobody there. And that was a trick. Some performers have that too. They can get on stage and go into that mode where they are oblivious to everything around them. They are just having that experience, and everybody can witness it.
Right.
And I've never been really able to do that. I've been performing, and those live streams sort of allowed me to just be. And that was interesting and informative for me to find out like what I'm really like, just me, when I'm not trying to get applause.
Right. Because that instant gratification is so important to us on stage, because it kind of tells you how you're doing.
Yeah. And you can end up chasing it. And what I find is that gets me away from myself. I end up getting disconnected from myself and my own intentions, because I'm going, well, what do they like? They like that. Maybe I should do more of that. And that's not good for me.
It's not good for anybody, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen me chase it, and you just end up stepping over the top and stepping on your own toes.
Well, we probably all chase it to some degree. Some people just figure out that doesn't work, or we find our own way to, or sometimes it can work, and it's complicated, I still don't have this figured out, and it's part of the fun, but also part of the frustration is you're like, God, I'm at this point, you'd think I would know what I'm doing up there, and I still don't always have a really intentional game plan, because part of it's just chasing that feeling.
Your 10,000 hours though, man.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Yeah.
How old are you now?
45.
Wow.
Well, I'll be 46 in a couple weeks.
Now, you started out in drum in high school.
Yeah, got the Letterman jacket and everything.
Were you into acting, or were you behind the scenes?
Both. I mean, I played sports. But
what'd you play?
I played everything to a point, and that point was when I was not good enough to carry on any further. So, I think my freshman year I played baseball, basketball, football, and then I had a jaw surgery, and they told me I couldn't get hit anymore, so I quit football, and I wasn't good at football. I wasn't good at any of these things. I was just good enough to make the teams.
Right.
And I played basketball till my junior year, and then I gave that up. But I did theater every year, and that was my love at that time. And
did you think you're going to be an actor?
Yeah, I thought it was a possibility. But what I realized was I wasn't that great an actor. Beyond just the, hey, I like to be on stage and I'm this is fun for me, and there's an energy to that, but I wasn't particularly nuanced. I could just talk loudly.
Right.
But what I realized was I loved the social component of it, and I loved that there were girls there. I was being in a locker room with a bunch of dudes is one thing, and I'd go to theater and everybody's changing clothes backstage, and I've got a scene where we have to kiss this girl, and also there was a much broader sort of group of people. People were reading books and smoking dope, and people were gay or straight or all. It was just a wider range of folks.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a coach threatening to whoop our ass if we went astray of what they thought we should do.
Yeah, and it was, I remember figuring that out too. I'm going, oh, there's no jockstrap jokes in here.
Right.
Like,
right. So when did you get in? Like
I took a drama 1 class for elective my senior year, and the baby class, drama 101 or whatever. And when the UIL play came up, the 1-act play that they do for competition, this guy named Chuck Bialis was usually the guy that had all the parts, and they were doing this story called The Rainmaker.
Oh yeah,
and
we did it my freshman year.
Yeah, so they came in and said, Jack, Sandy wants you to try out for the part.
We should mention that you and I went to the same high school.
That's right,
and have the same theater teacher. Yeah.
We did, Sandy Earle and Miss Godwin.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was my gregarious self in class and cutting up and having a ball. Just with that kind of energy, the drama energy of the people. And so she goes, stand on the table and tell me you're going to make it rain. And I did. And she goes, you got the part.
I can totally envision this happening.
Isn't that great?
Wow.
Because they said Chuck just wouldn't do it. Whatever that thing is, you could stand up and bullshit somebody.
Yeah.
That was always...
You have that in space.
That was my thing. When did you start playing guitar?
When I was 15. I went to... my family was not particularly religious, but occasionally they would take me to the Unitarian church in the Woodlands. And the Unitarians are not known for their choirs. So they would have, rather than a choir, they would have performers come. And so one day it'd be somebody reading from Dante's Inferno, and one day it would be a folk trio singing Dylan songs. And I would just happen to be there on that day. And I heard these songs, and I loved country music and I loved rock and roll. But when I heard these Dylan songs, it just blew the doors open. It wasn't even him singing them, but it was these songs just had this power and opened up this world of possibility of what music could be.
When is that, around 1990 or something?
Yeah, 89, 90, something like that. And so I asked my parents for a guitar for Christmas, and they got it for me. So I would have been 14, and turned 15 a couple weeks later. And they got me an Alvarez 12-string.
Yeah, buddy. But that was in tune.
Oh, boy. And easy to play. And so, the strings were like telephone cables, and yeah, it was a rough start. But I still have that guitar.
You do?
And yeah, a friend of mine sat on it. We went to New Orleans my senior year, and he got a bit drunk and sat on it and cracked the frame. But years later, I had it converted into a baritone, and now I do a lot of my writing on it. It's really special to me to still own that guitar and still be making music on it.
That's really cool. I wish I had my first guitar.
What was yours?
Well, the first one I got was a Takamine, and I traded it for that. You probably know that guy, Randy Atkins from Houston. Probably a huge fan of yours. He had that guitar and said he had Jerry Jeff sign it, me, Todd Snyder, and then as I was signing, I was like, "Wait a minute, you want my guitar?" So I traded for him.
Oh wow!
So did you start gigging right away?
No. It took me a long time to even learn how to do anything. Like I had a Mel Bay chord book, and I learned the chords, but it was really frustrating because it didn't translate into songs. I was like, okay, well, I know these chords, but I don't know how to play anything. And then I finally figured out I got a songbooks. So I got a Willie Nelson songbook.
It's me too, man.
A Jimmy Buffett songbook and a Bob Dylan songbook. And then that was the key that opened up everything, because I was like, I know the chords, I know the songs, and now I see where to play the chord. And then after a couple of times through, I was like, oh, this makes sense. And then I didn't need the books anymore because I knew all the songs already. And there's only, I'm not a great guitar player.
Is that how you started to write too?
I was writing before
Like
I was
copying
playing.
them?
Well, I was writing before I was playing, but yeah, it was just copying what I heard. I was trying to be Shel Silverstein, or trying to be Johnny Cash or Willie or whatever. I thought that was just writing my little poems. And then I got the guitar, and then it was on. I was like, okay, now I'm a real deal 15-year-old with my big ideas,
with your Dear Diary list,
my Dear Diary, and I got some things to say that people need to hear, and about my journey.
That's where your mom comes in. I love it that your mom said that. Retell that story, man. That's one of my favorite things.
Oh,
where you said you want to be a country singer.
Yeah, I guess I was. So I didn't start gigging until I got out of college, and I got out of college, and I said, "Mom, I want to be a country singer." And her first thing was, "Can you sing?"
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, "Don't you have to be like impoverished to be a country singer? Like you grew up in the woodlands." Are you going to sing about how they ran out of towels at the country club?
That's my favorite. I felt the same way. Whenever I would tell people, I was like, yeah, man, this might come off kind of weird.
Yeah, well.
What are we going to write about? But then you figure out.
Yeah. We go chase our various addictions and rough lifestyles and hang out with enough folks, and we get our own stories to tell. It's and there's something to be said about, there's an authenticity if you grew up on a farm or rodeoing or whatever, to sing about certain things. But I don't think you need anything to sing about your own heart or your own emotional experience as a human. Money is not that. And it was just, and it wasn't like we were
right.
Extravagantly rich or anything. We weren't at all. But we just lived in a town that was sort of known as as a planned community. So there was 1,200 people when I moved there. Now there's 120,000 or something crazy. But
yeah, that town has has grown into itself that it doesn't feel like it did when we were there.
I can't even. I get lost. Just
I get lost
looking
every time
at
I go
it.
there.
Yeah, but that was definitely starting off. It felt like I struggled a little bit with feeling like people's perception of me was based on the town I grew up in rather than my actual story or my work. And
I know I ran from that too for a long time. I'm from Houston, just north of Houston.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you gig in college?
Nah.
When did you get on stage? You go, oh, I think I might be able to do this.
Well, I went through college knowing that's what I wanted to do, but I lived in a dry county, so there was nowhere to gig really. So I did would have like they called it coffee houses, and you would get up and it was like a little talent show for the students. And so my first time I did that, I sang "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right" by Dylan and "Walking Blues" by Robert Johnson. I had this kid who played guitar with me. I call him a kid. He's now a brain surgeon or something.
Right.
But he was also a great guitar player, and we did that. And then my second show was singing "No Woman, No Cry" by Bob Marley at a drag beauty queen contest. But after that, I walked out and there was a guy there who said, just this guy, and he goes, "That was pretty good. Or you got something." Just offhanded compliment about
just some random dude that was in there.
Yeah, I knew the guy. He was a senior. I was a freshman, but it's just I think about it a lot. The power that a few encouraging words can have, because just one guy saying you're not bad, and I was like,
so you're saying I got a chance.
So you're saying I got a chance. And so I spent the next 3 years just wishing I could get out of college, but and there's nowhere to play really.
What college was it?
Hendrix College in Conway, Arkansas. And Ben Nichols from Lucero was a couple years ahead of me. Graham Wilkinson, who lives here in town, went there. His older brother, Aaron Wilkinson, was a year below me, and he was a musician. He passed away, but so a fair number of musicians came out of the little school. And but when I graduated, I went and detasseled corn in Iowa for like a month, and then I moved down to Crystal Beach.
What'd you say?
I detasseled corn in Iowa.
What is that?
In Iowa. Well, it's you just walk through a field.
Is my woodland showing?
I don't think this is common knowledge. I'm not even gonna explain it very well, but basically involved 20 of my college buddies and my ex-wife camping in a cornfield in Iowa, and basically migrant labor. You just walk up and down these rows of corn and pick off sort of reproductive part, and you get paid to do it. So we were out there for a while. It was the best shape of my life. And
wow.
I wasn't very good at it, but it was a good experience and gave me a little money, and then went to the beach and started trying to figure out how I was going to play music.
So how long were you there in Iowa?
Like a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then y'all just packed up and drove down to Galveston?
Yeah, or Crystal Beach. Yeah, on the Bolivar Peninsula. So you go to Galveston, take a ferry across, and there's a peninsula there, and that's where I decamped to. And that's where it all began for me.
So you were married?
No. But the woman who became my wife was at the time my girlfriend, and she was on that trip. But
was she with you? Like, did she come down and live with you?
No, not until many years later.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I got out of college, declared myself single, and went and
got a gig, baby.
Got a gig.
What was the name of the place?
Bob's Sports Bar and World Famous Grill.
That's what people always go, how do you get started in this? I'm like, learn how to tame a crowd in a sports bar.
Yeah. Well, I was just hanging out. I was doing like landscaping and, getting paid under the table to do stuff. There wasn't much going on out there. And we would go for lunch to this bar, and they had a joke there, but it's real. They had mustard, ketchup, and a can of off on every table. They called it Crystal Beach Cologne. And one day I just went to the owner, Bob, and I said, "Hey, man, I I'm a singer. How would you feel if I just set up over here in the corner?
Did you know him? Did he know you? From
Not
hanging
really.
out there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess a little bit. I can't remember how well we knew each other, but I just said, you don't have to pay me anything, but could I just sit up in the corner? I'll put a tip jar out. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I got a PV acoustic amp, and you could put a microphone and a guitar
through the amp,
through both of them through the one amp, and a mic stand, and I set up and started doing 4-hour shows, and that was how I kind of got my start.
Was it all just covers?
Yeah, 4 hours of covers, and then so I started there, and then there was a bunch of bars down there, so I started working at the Stingery and the Ship's Wheel and Genie's 1 and Genie's 2 and all these different joints, and
did you have like a following, or was it always just random?
It's just random. Yeah. Some nights I'd play for 2 people, and some nights it would be packed. And it just depended on the season and what was happening. I had one guy, a guy named Homer Fry, who lived in a trailer behind the bar at Bob's. And he was like my, what's Rocky's coach?
Trainer?
Yeah.
Mickey.
He was my Mickey.
Yeah.
So he would sit at the corner of the bar drinking Milwaukee Tall Boys and smoking cigarettes all day, and he would have like a mesh tank top and short shorts and sandals, and he was like 70.
Yeah.
And he would push me, and if I wasn't trying, he'd be like, "You're not doing it enough, Hayes. Try harder."
From the crowd?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Well, the crowd was him.
Right.
It was just me and him. That was it. And he would push me. But if somebody
Cut me, Mick.
if somebody came in and started shit, which happens, regularly, he was the first guy. He was my defender as well. And so it was this funny relationship. And when he died, they buried him with the remote control from the TV at Bob's.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Nah. So a lot of colorful characters down there.
How long ago did he pass away?
Oh, it's been a minute. Probably 05, 06, something like that.
How'd you get involved with Sisters Morales and that whole crowd?
So I was waiting tables down in Galveston, and one night I got off work, and I was going to go out to a bar with some coworkers, and the bar was closed. And so I walk back to my car, and I just hear like music in the distance, and I turn down this alley, and I follow the music, and I walk into the door, and it's the little folk club, the Old Quarter Acoustic Cafe. And there's somebody on stage, and there's a really cute bartender, and there's this shrine to Townes Van Zandt on one wall, and Lightning Hopkins and Blaze Foley. And I'm like, what is this place? And I go over to the guy, it turns out to be the owner, Rex Bell, who used to play bass with Townes and Lightning.
All right.
And I say, what's happening? He says, open mic night. And I said, you mean, can I get up and sing? He goes, yeah. So I went out to my car. I had a guitar in my trunk, and came in.
The 12 string?
No, I was playing a Sigma by this point, which it's not good to have expensive guitars on a beach because my strings would rust out every
Right.
day. I'd sit on the porch every night and play.
Right.
Anyway, got on stage and did a couple songs, and that was it. It became my second home. So I started tending bar there. I started doing open mic nights, and I just hung out. Any minute I was not gigging in Crystal Beach or working, I came over to Galveston and hung out there. And then I got to watch people coming through. So Steve Fromholtz or Vince Bell or Ray Wylie Hubbard or Sisters Morales or Shake Russell and Dana Cooper, all these fantastic songwriters who were like touring came through. So
did you know them? Did you have their records and all that?
No. I mean, I was like mostly mainstream country, and it went as far as Christopherson, like kind of, and then a few obscure things. But
did you know Ray?
I knew who Ray was. I didn't know much beyond Up Against the Wall. I grew up with the sort of like, I had Jerry Jeff on my wall and Willie and all those guys, but the Guy Clarks and the Steve Fromholtzes and those folks I wasn't as familiar with.
Yeah.
And then I got a real education in the town's school, and then all these songwriters through that. And then you had all these people coming through who were still alive. Towns died the year before I started playing there. But you had all these old running buddies and musicians and groupies and drug dealers and all these folks from his orbit. And then you had a lot of people, like I mentioned, that were really great songwriters who were out touring the circuit, which I didn't know existed.
Right.
And I just thought, oh, so you play covers or you're on CMT. Like there is no in between.
Right.
And I saw you. Now I left that out. In college, I watched in high school, we would sell your CDs. My buddy Richie Ross.
Oh yeah.
We had this fireworks stand. I guess his girlfriend's dad had a fireworks stand, and they would sell your CDs
at the fireworks stand?
Fireworks stand. And and I remember driving around one day in high school and hearing, was it like Butterfly or there was some song that you had. I just remember them coming on and saying the new single by Jack Ingram. I was like, wow, that's a DJ. Flutter. That's a DJ playing a song by a guy who grew up in the town that I grew up in, or am growing up in. And I've never heard of this. I didn't know this was a thing. And then I was in college and I watched an episode of Austin City Limits that you were on. And I was like, there again. Okay, so I'm following what you're doing and going, so
this is accessible.
So there is a chance.
Yeah, so I got a chance.
And so then I get to the old quarter, and eventually I start getting to open for these people, and I got to open for the Sisters Morales, and they, along with Wylie Hubbard, were the first people to take me off the island, and they would take me to Houston.
Oh wow!
To play Dan Electro's Guitar Bar or the Congo's Monkey Duck.
Right.
And I was like, people are paying money for tickets to come to this, and then they'd take me to Helotus, or they'd take me to Poor David's Pub in Dallas, or I can't remember the dance hall that closed down, Sanger Hall. Yeah. So all these different places, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's a scene. There's clubs all over Texas, and there's audience all over Texas, and so they started running me around, and then when came time to make my first record, I was just going to do it on my own, and Lisa offered to produce it, and that really changed my whole life, because I don't know that anybody would have ever heard what I did, but Lisa took me to Pedernales, Willie Nelson's studio, got a professional group of musicians, and produced the record 100 times better than I would have.
What record was that?
Flowers and Liquor.
Yeah.
Which is how I met you.
And didn't Turcotte put that out?
He did after the fact. So I'd sent him a demo that I had done, and then he never called back, and so I just went and made this record on my own. I took out a loan and went and bought a guitar, not a Sigma. I bought the guitar I still play today.
Wow.
The day before I started the record, and then I went to Pedernales, made the record, and I just sent it to Brad Turcotte, who had this little label, Compadre Records, and I thought, what the hell? I'll just send it to him. And he called me back, and I ended up signing a one record licensing deal with him, which also was really hugely helpful in that I knew nothing about putting out a record. I knew nothing about anything. I was a cover singer,
right?
And bars with
he
four
sent
people.
Me that record.
He sent you that record, which is how I met you.
Yeah,
because I think he got back to me that you told him you liked it or wanted to meet, or I could come to your show and say hey or something.
Yeah.
So I went to the Mucky Duck, and you had a double show. I think maybe one of those acoustic motel shows, and so I watched the second show, and I stood around after you watched you sign 100 CDs and everything, and finally everybody left, and I walked up and introduced myself.
I remember like it was yesterday hearing that record going, this is good. He's from my hometown. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same way you start putting things together. We're like, oh, these songs are fully baked. More or less.
Yeah, well, I can't speak to the quality of them, but I know that your encouragement and enthusiasm and for it meant a lot to me, and then also there was so much I didn't know about the record business, and I remember you spending a lot of time on the phone with me, talking me through it. And there's a handful of people. There's a lot of folks that have helped me out along the way, but Lisa Morales, Wylie Hubbard, and you, I think off the top of my head, are probably the three who went the farthest and did the most to help me get started. Yeah. And I appreciate that, because there was nothing in it for you guys. Like, and I try to remember that and be half as gracious as y'all were to me. I don't know that I am, but it's something I aspire to, because I think about I just wouldn't be here without folks helping me along the way.
It's funny how you just put one foot in front of you, get a gig, then get another one, and then you start just learning shit.
Yeah.
And I remember, that's one of the things that we do as humans. If you went through something and learned something, it's like, oh, that guy's good. Maybe I can teach him not to be an idiot like I was. You know what I mean? Like, just give him some information. Now, how did that all get parlayed into being on Lost Highway and those records? Because those are some great records.
Well, I made the one record. Brad didn't want to re-sign me, so I took out another loan, made a second record. Mm-hmm. It did well. KHYI started playing it, and started playing shows with a band, and like all of a sudden I started having an audience.
What songs were those?
Down the Road Tonight was the one that really got a lot of airplay and just opened up a whole world for me. Little Rock was on there. Wish I Hadn't Stayed So Long. Long Way Home. Take Me Away. Allison sang. That was the first time we sang together.
Oh, really?
Allison Moore, my wife, sings on that, and so it just.
Did you know her that well at that time?
No, I mean I knew her a little bit. I was hanging out at a bar that she used to hang out at, and I wanted to know her.
Yeah, I think we all felt that at some point.
But I was just thrilled that she sang on it with me. And on that record, I had 2 co-writes on that record, 3 co-writes. One with John Evans, one with Wylie Hubbard, and one with Guy Clark. And it was I started hanging out in Nashville a bit more there. Cut that record there with R.S. Field, and anyway, it just sort of I got a manager at that time, Mike Crowley, and he and I.
That's what I mean. Like, how'd you hook up with R.S. Field?
Yeah, I met R.S. Tracy Thomas, I think, was my publicist. She now manages Jason Isbell, and but back then she was a publicist, and she'd worked a record, and so she introduced me to a lot of folks in town, Kathy Whitley, and a lot of the folks we both know. And
so at this point, you're starting to roll.
People are
starting to go.
A few things are starting to happen, and yeah, and so I start to have a little bit of be able to tour a little bit. You took me out. Let me jump on the bus one time.
That's right.
Which is fun because it was, so many times it's everybody's the labels and the managers and everybody's talking, does this make sense? And do this and the money and that, blah, blah, blah. And I was at some charity golf tournament with you. And you're like, I'm going out on the road tomorrow. And I said, that's cool. Sounds like a lot of fun or something. And you were like, you want to go? I was like, yeah. All right. Bus leaves at 8. And so I just came and jumped on, sold merch for you, not very well.
Yeah, that's when we went up to wasn't that up in Green Bay and Chicago and Minneapolis?
Midwest. Yeah. Anyway, and then one day somebody from Lost Highway, Kim Bowie, A&R person at Lost Highway, came to a show and reached out. And I had formed a record label with my manager, Mike, and so that Little Rock record we put out together, and so I was a free agent, and they came and asked if I wanted to be on a label with Lyle Lovett and Willie Nelson, and
that was a big one. I remember being so jealous of that label because it was just so freeing what y'all got to do, and they put real money into those, into promoting those records.
They did, They did. I didn't realize at the time how significant that was. Any of it, actually. It's funny now with these years that have gone on, I can look back with a different perspective of where I was, of where that label was, what the music industry was, and of how people, I don't know, might have seen me. It's like I see people coming up all the time. They're the next new songwriter, and they're doing great, and they got this thing, and I'm like, there's a little jealousy and a little curiosity and a lot of different feelings about it, and it's just finally dawned on me. It's like I think I was that guy for a minute.
Yeah, you never get to be the new kid in town twice.
Yeah.
That's the long and short of that one.
Yeah. Unless I guess maybe I'd completely reinvent myself, but it's probably too late in the game to do that. But it was a great label, and they let me do whatever I wanted to do, and were really supportive, and so I lucked out with that.
So did you just put out your records on your own now?
No, I'm with Dual Tone. My last 2 records have been with Dual Tone.
Who runs that? Scott Robinson?
Yeah.
I worked with Scott in Dallas when he first started in the music business.
Yeah.
Back in 93 maybe?
Yeah.
94?
Yeah.
Is Chris Knight still on that record label?
I don't know if he is or not. Shovels and Ropes on there, Shaky Graves. They used to do Guy Clark stuff and Radney Foster, and they had a lot of things that I respected and still do respect. And they've been good to me. I'm starting to feel a bit more like, Todd's song, the old timer. I've been through 7 managers, 5 labels, 1,000 picks and patch cables, and I used to just think, oh, that's funny. I had 1 manager and 1 label, and now I'm my 3rd manager and my 5th label of some sort, and a lot of bottles of booze and bags of pot.
Yeah.
And so on and so on.
Like a bunch of pinball just rolling around, getting knocked around by the paddles.
Yeah. I'd like to be the paddle.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
How do we do that?
Maybe one day. So what's next, man?
Man, I'm really enjoying writing songs in a way that I think I got real stagnant for a while in a lot of different parts of life, and definitely creatively, and felt pretty disconnected from the whole deal and from myself, and I've been trying to find that spark and that love again, and just being present with myself and with my life, and I really appreciate songwriting. When I was younger, it was about catching inspiration and lightning in a bottle. And I thought whether that was alcohol fueled or drug fueled or just some crazy life experience, that was the key to everything. And I just thought you caught that inspiration, and that was it. That was the key. That's how everybody did it. And there's certainly a lot of that for a lot of people. But and I used that to some degree. But then I started thinking, what happens when the inspiration's not there? And so I these days I try to find the inspiration, and I also try to have my tools sharp and ready, so that when I have it or don't have it, either way, I can still work at my job, which is to write songs. And
did Allison produce this latest record?
She co-produced it with Kenny Greenberg, and she co-produced the one before with Brad Jones.
How's working with her in the studio?
It's good. It's good. Yeah. It's, she's an artist of the first class, and I respect her skills and talent and point of view. And when I'm in the studio, I have terrible recall. I can't tell you where I ate. I can't tell you my favorite movie. I can't tell you anybody's name. And I certainly can't tell you which song had the guitar tone that I'm trying to get when I'm in the studio, or what record. Or my reference points are all over the place. Not great. And she has an amazing recall and ability to put words to what I'm feeling, and she knows me well enough to do that. So
Right.
it's wonderful for me to have somebody that can help me articulate that vision creatively when I'm in the studio. So I'm not just saying play louder and being a caveman about it.
Right.
She can say, well, I think you're thinking the sticky fingers
Meets this, meets that.
Yeah,
All
and then the
reference.
band's like, oh, well, why didn't you just say so? And we can do that. And
Isn't that amazing?
yeah.
Those musicians, when you go, I need to sound like Frank Sinatra meets Laura Lovett meets Tom Petty meets whoever, Tom Waits, and they go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we got that.
Yeah. Instead of just, I need it to be blue, or something.
Did you hear that joke?
Abstract. What's that?
I guess it was Art Garfunkel was playing with Barry Beckett, and he said that. He goes, he's out there playing piano, and Art goes on the talk back and says, man, I just wanted to sound a little more purple.
Yeah.
And supposedly Barry goes, hey man, come on here and find a fucking purple key. He goes, I'll play that all night long.
Yeah. Well, so it's definitely a bonus to have somebody that can articulate that vision. And then Kenny Greenberg's one of the world's great guitar players and a great producer. And so it was a really cool combo for me. And they've worked together for 20 years. And so I felt I've never felt super comfortable in the studio. And maybe I shouldn't, I don't know, but I felt like I was in good hands.
Yeah. Do you normally take songs that are fully baked into the studio, or do you write on the fly?
Both. I've never done a record where I wasn't writing to the last minute. But I also have never gone in without anything done. And so I usually have about 80% of a record, or at least a bunch of songs ready to go. And mostly it's like I don't have the time or the budget to be in there forever.
Well, this last record, I remember you sent me versions of things, and then you redid it, a lot of it, didn't you?
Well, I did. Those early versions were probably the Patreon. So I've been doing Patreon since the pandemic started because we lost our ability to tour. So I was scrambling.
Is that still a good deal?
Yeah, I like it. It's a way for folks to support artists, photographers, musicians, journalists, whatever, graphic designers that they like. But for me, it's an outlet for those songs. It took 5 years in between Came Out Yo-Yo and Lovers and Leavers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through some stuff in my own life that made me not want to write songs and not put music out in the world. And but then when I started wanting to write again, you probably have this, like you have songs, but it's like, well, it doesn't fit this record, or this is a cool song, but it's not for me necessarily. And I didn't have a publishing deal, so there was nothing to do with these songs. And with Patreon, I could release them. I could go in the studio and not sit out 5 years. I could just go in with Charlie Sexton, or I could go in with John Evans, or any number of people, and work with great producers or musicians and flesh out these ideas. So I could do a reggae version of something if I wanted. And yeah, I'm not going to put that on a record, but I could release it through Patreon. Yeah. And it'd be whatever. It's just a chance to experiment and not get stagnant. And so I love it for those reasons. And so those are probably what I sent you, as the early versions of that.
They were great.
And then it's cool to see, different stuff. Jed Hughes produced a bunch, or like whatever. And people just see, it's also a good way to audition producers and see who you click with. And
a great way to audition your own songs too.
Yeah. And without it being something that defines you, or, or if I've got something just really goofy that I want to finish, but I don't necessarily want to share with the whole world.
Right.
It's a cool way to do that. And I think my fans seem to appreciate it. And
how do you do that with Patreon?
I have 690 patrons
that pay a monthly thing, and you just have to. How does that work?
Yeah, they contribute anywhere from $1 a month to more, and
to more.
Well, there's some generous people out there, and
so do you systematically put stuff out?
Well, when I'm at my best, I do. When I'm at my best, I'm putting a song a month out, and then I'm doing a live stream, and I have 3 series, What's Hayes Going On About, where I talk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes about a song and just explain who I wrote it with and what the life it had and where it came from and how we recorded it and all that stuff. I have Songs I Love, which I just pick a song I love and sing it and talk about it. And then I have Memorabilia Mondays, where I just take, a poster from your festival and I hold it up and I just tell people, like, this is what this was like. And so I think I try to do the things that I would like if I was a supporter of somebody.
So you're engaged.
Yeah.
Sounds like you found your way back in.
Yeah. I mean, I since I put my record out a couple months ago or last month, I've dropped off because it's been so busy with all of the record release stuff and the touring that I've dropped the ball on all those things. But I'm gonna pick them up again and trying to be steady about it. It's for me. It's just
what's the record called? You Got It All.
You Get It All.
You Get It All.
Yeah,
it's really good, man.
Thank you. I'm proud of it.
The record's called You Get It All.
Are we being? I just picked up we're being filmed.
Yeah.
Thanks for the heads up, guys.
Better late than never. Hey, it's Carll, everybody. One of my best friends, one of the best artists you'll ever see.
This is pretty badass.